Fantastic, fantastic. Welcome, welcome to IG Live with Elvira and friends. My beautiful brother, Pan. You are amazing, and I'm so, so grateful that you're here. And looks to be working. Are you on your computer or your phone?
On the phone. I didn't seem to get an option on the computer, just like you
that's what I
suggested.
thought. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad we had that conversation,
Yeah.
and this is working out. Amazing, amazing. All right. So Pan, I'm going to read your bio. My apologies. I printed this really last minute. I was going to print your longer one, but I had to go with the short because of timing. So you're going to fill in the rest. I'm going to ask you questions, and you can fill in the rest. Okay. So.
Good.
Just your short one. Okay. So Vera is a very empathic, and committed to facilitating meaningful connections. Pan studied closely with the creator, Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication. He transformed his life and helped over 1,000 people over 20 years. He is uniquely suited to stimulate transformation in clients' lives. So there's so much more, Pan, but that's the short version. So let's get into, so yeah, how does that feel? I mean, you know I didn't read a very long bio of you, but how does it feel?
Yeah. What's important is who I am now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly, exactly. I love it. I love it. And Pan, I just want to say that, both of us, like I just turned 60, and I know, do you want to say your age?
75.
75. Oh my God, you look amazing. And honestly, like I feel like both of our lives are just starting to take off now. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's a continuing process, but I feel more alive every day.
Yeah.
And very happy to be who I am, the way I am, and where I am.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Honestly, like I talk to you and you're just such an inspiration to me. 75, like honestly, like you don't look it, you don't act it, and I just feel like you've got this young boy energy inside you that is just, it's so overwhelmingly beautiful. And we recently had a session where you got to serve me, and I want to talk a little bit about that offering because it's one of your new offerings. And it's really powerful. It's powerful stuff because you are a Hayoka. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
I believe so.
A Hayoka empath. Yeah, Hayoka empath. I believe I'm one too because I took the test and I got 9 out of 10. But a Hayoka empath is an empath to the highest degree. In other words, there's lots of empaths on the planet, but Hayoka, there's only so many. What's the percentage of empaths that are Hayoka?
Well, from what I've read, it's about 1%.
1% of empaths are Hayoka, yeah. And you and I are in that category, which makes us even more, that's one of our superpowers, right? Is probably our greatest superpower, is that we are so connected to other people's emotions and their hearts and souls. And this is why I adore you so much, because we're so much alike in this regard. And yeah, and right on, when was it? It was, I believe, was it on New Year's Eve? Was it after New Year's or before? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But you and I had an amazing session where you essentially helped me to see my trauma, a traumatic situation that I went through, from a different lens. And you fully saw me in my vulnerability as I shared this, and you witnessed me. And that's what you're really, really good at, holding space, witnessing, and allowing people to process their emotions so that they can return to themselves, so that they can truly get back into their higher vibration beingness, which is their authentic self, right? And this is why we get along so well with our inner work, that we do it in our own ways, but then we come together, and it, it's just so powerful to have this to be able to do the Love Your Vibe transformation, with you as one of my foundational leaders. You're helping to build this to make it even better. You and Eleanor are working together, and the rest of her team. And you also also get to share your own magic, your own story, message, and magic. And your magic happens to be NVC. And beyond NVC, I feel like this thing that we went through recently, which is relatively new, I don't know what you want to call it. I think I came out with a name for you to consider, but it's essentially like just like a real, when people are ready to let go of their trauma, you hold space for them to rewrite their story or the way they see it.
Yes.
They go from this victim place to this empowered place. And oh, I'm getting chills just saying that. And I just want to ask you, Pam, first of all, what was that process? How did you come into that process? Because I think it's relatively new for you. You worked it, it sort of came through when you were helping another woman before me. And then I said, Pam, I really want to experience this because I think it's a powerful tool that you can share, because there's so many of us with old stories that bring up trauma. And if you can help us to truly, let go of those stories so that we don't have to relive the trauma again and again, that's a service to humanity. So I just want to ask you, Pam, and if I've said anything incorrectly, please correct me, but tell me how it all came about, Pam.
Well, very briefly, my history with nonviolent communication was I met Marshall Rosenberg in 2001. And there's kind of a funny story behind that, which I'm not going to tell at this time because I want to get to the meat of what we're here to talk about. And what I realized 5 minutes after I met him was that I was not in touch with my emotions. Everything that I used as an emotion word was a judgment about what other people were doing to me. And so I had to get into it from a very rank beginner sort of state to learn how to feel my emotions. And it changed my life for the better. It was just phenomenal.
How many years ago was that, Pam? How many years?
2001.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, so it's getting to be
quite 22 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So when I met him, I had been prescribed, diagnosed with acute chronic clinical depression, which means really messes you up from time to time. It's with you all the time. We can see it in your blood and so on and so forth. After a number of years, I found myself in the East Coast without my medication. And I was with a whole bunch of people on this wonderful island off of Cape Cod. And I told everybody I was probably going to be very depressed. I'd be up in my room. They wouldn't see much of me. Well, I never got depressed. And the reason I never got depressed is because I had changed the way I talked to myself. So 2004, I started teaching it. And then, was it 2 or 3 years ago, you and I are in one of these big mastermind things, and we're looking at, I'm looking at everybody's faces, and everyone is kind of like that. And you are like this, and I'm like this, and we're both responding to what the speaker is saying. And so I reached out to you, and I'm so glad that I did. So what?
Same.
In the last year, I have taken a strong interest in the new studies about trauma and find it absolutely fascinating. And originally, when I first heard about trauma, it's like, oh, I was in an automobile accident and lost my legs, or I had to shoot, 500 Nazis or something like that. But it turns out that trauma is something that we all experience to one degree or another. As Marshall said, no one escapes childhood undamaged. Yeah. It's part of our process. Yeah. So what the process works on is by paying a lot of attention to our emotions. And, I was abandoned. That's not an emotion. That's something that happened to you. I felt sad and lonely. Now we're getting somewhere. Second step is to understand what is the source of our emotions. And it's not what other people do to us, much to my surprise. It's what we value about life. when we are being satisfied in these important needs that we have, then we feel happy and we're coherent and life is good. And when we're not satisfied with these things, that's when our emotions do their job to come and knock on our door, pound on our door, scream at our door, to draw our attention that something is going on and we have a choice about what's going on, and we can be active with that choice. So I have a weekly meeting with people to practice NVC, and an 89-year-old woman is part of our group. She's an amazing woman, and she's given me permission to tell this story. For 3 weeks in a row, she wasn't sleeping, and she had this nightmare that was reoccurring. And I looked through my books and I'm trying to find some way to help her. And it dawns on me, I don't have to learn something new. I can help her understand what emotions she had and what needs she was meeting in this long ordeal where she was stalked. She called for backup support. She was a parole officer at the time. They chased this guy into a corner. He drew a knife and attacked her, and she shot him in the leg. Then she took the band for her purse off of her purse and tied it around his leg because blood was pumping out. Cut a main fire vein.
Yeah.
So as she told this story, so this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. And I realized that we weren't going to get anywhere with that. So I said, what was the first thing that happened? How did you feel? What was your need? And slowed her down so that she could go into her body in the present moment and recall what was happening there.
Wow.
And everybody is always doing the best thing they can to meet their needs.
Yeah.
So she realized at each step during her story that she was doing the best she could to meet her needs. And she had this enormous emotional release. She was crying and laughing at the same time. But I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to be with her. So I met with her 2 days later to just check in on her. Yeah. And she said, I've been sleeping like a baby. The dream is gone. I'm so grateful for what you did. And I realized that I had this tool. Yeah. It's probably not capable of healing all forms of trauma, but it's amazingly powerful.
Yeah.
If we can understand the really good reason we did what we did, even if we are not happy with what we did, like shooting somebody in the leg is probably not a joyful thing for most people. Yeah. But if we can understand what it is that we were doing in order to experience life, then the conflict goes away.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's like you're helping people to find compassion for themselves and for others, going back to these old stories that would normally trigger us and activate us, and you help us to put those stories down to a level that it's like, yeah, that happened, and it doesn't determine who I am, and I can still be happy and healthy and keep on moving. Is that correct, Pan?
That's it, exactly. I think I call the process, not the one that we're talking about right now, but the process of nonviolent communication as I practice it and as I learned it from Marshall in 400 hours and sitting in his lectures and driving him back and forth to the airport and whatnot, is getting out of the story. The stories we tell ourselves are loaded with judgments and evaluations and criticisms and diagnoses, and those are the things that destroy connection with ourselves and with others. So, story just to bring to life what's alive in us now about something that happened in the past. That's all we need to do. And then notice how we feel now in this moment about that. And then recognize what needs we were meeting at the time. It's so transformational. It's the greatest joy that I've ever had in my life is to help people come to love themselves based on this process. And it's so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. It's your magic. It's what helped you, right? So you have a story of where you were and where you are now, or where you were after the transformation of having NVC. You have a message, like you don't have to be up here with depression and anxiety and all that stuff. You can be over here. And magic is how you got there. Yours was NVC. For me, it was the Love Your Vibe Miracle Mindset at rock bottom,
Right.
which is, would you agree, is a pretty good foundation before going on to NVC, Pan?
Yes, I think that I think they fit together hand in glove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to put labels on them. I haven't really thought about it, but
Yeah.
I totally enjoyed taking the course and the training and then being a mentor, looking forward to moving forward with your process. It is really, really powerful.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Well, I know that I've seen the transformation in you. So it's just another tool in your toolbox. Like you have NVC, you have the Love Your Vibe transformation. I'm sure you have other tools as well. So it's a matter of pulling out the right tools at the right time. And my, story, message, and magic offers a series of teachings and tools as just a foundation. It's not everything. Yours goes into more depth around our emotions and releasing and, the story and all of that. Mine is a foundation. And I was shown that, it needs to be shared with the world. And I'm like, how the hell do I do that? And then when COVID hit, Eleanor and Jennifer came together and they wanted to create the 6-month facilitation program. And I started crying and I said, that's how it gets shared with the world.
Yeah.
Through amazing people like them who have trained you. And we're going to have I've been shown about 1,000 mentors globally. I don't know if that number's exact or not, but that's what I was shown. And it's just it's one way of doing our inner work that is super simple. I've taught this to 8-year-olds. They understand it. They get it because, law of attraction can sometimes be up here. Some people talk about it in very woo-woo spiritual terms, but I feel like I'm a simple gal. I came from the corporate world, big pharma, give it to me simply, right? So I feel like I'm a simple gal who has to deliver this message simply so that more people can understand it. And I've explained it to 8-year-olds and they get it. Yeah. Because here's the way I explain law of attraction, okay, which is the foundation of the Love Your Vibe transformation. Do you want to be a crap magnet or do you want to be a miracle magnet? You get to choose.
You do get to choose.
And that's it.
Absolutely your choice.
Yeah. And so I love that your nonviolent communication works, like it dovetails with what we're doing with the Love Your Vibe transformation. And I'm thrilled that you're going to be facilitating both on my platform and serving people globally that need your exact story, message, and magic. Because your story is one of, if you just want to, touch on your story a little bit, Pan, of, what brought you to that place before you discovered NVC, a little bit about your life so we can understand you better.
Okay, so I lived in 17 different places before I was 15 years old. My father was in the Army and we moved a lot. So I was never from around here, and to love was to lose. So you get to a new place, I would make friends, then they would move, and I would be the one people were making friends with, and then I moved, and this happened over and over and over again. And I realized at a very young age that, yeah, I'm going to feel sad when I move away or they move away, but it's worth it. It's worth it. So, let's see, I'm in Germany, I go to school in Ireland, and that was really fascinating because I stayed in the New Wing, which was 800 years old, definitely not Kansas anymore. And in each of these moves, I learned how to take time when I get into a new situation to observe the culture. Because even moving from Oklahoma to Texas is moving from one culture to another.
Wow.
And then with my empathic skills, which I didn't have a word for in that, but I learned that if I could watch people's body and their body language and their facial movements, I would get a much clearer idea of what was important to them than I could by just listening to their words.
Wow.
So life goes on. I decide to be a Jesuit priest. I realize, since I'm in the beginning of that means I would live without the company of women. I didn't want to do that. I've always loved women's company more than men. And so I become a playwright, and life goes on. Then the war comes, the Vietnamese War comes. I'm thinking for sure I'm going to join the army because that's what we do in our family. And then I get a couple of magazines from a Quaker group in New Hampshire, and I realize what's going on there. And I've already gone and taken my test and everything as far as enlisting.
Wow.
So I decide I'm not going to enlist. So there I go. Okay, so I meet Marshall. What else can I tell you about? Important things in my life. I lived the first real breakthrough I had in terms of my own personal happiness was moving into the wilderness in Washington State, up in the Cascade Mountains, and I loved it. Oh my God, it was so incredibly wonderful. Excuse me. This is that appointment I have to rush off to when we're done. And I see that I buy 5 acres of land with my wife. I build a house on it and raise my kids there. And I realize that human beings are actually meant to live on the planet. We belong here. And it was so rich and wonderful. Oh God, I could talk for hours about the wonders of trees that get knocked down by bigger trees, and so they grow up. Even though, nature is just so incredibly powerful. So I met Marshall, and that was a major change in my life. And I throw myself into it. I'm a web developer at the time, so I build applications so we don't have to spend 2 or 3 weeks depositing the $50,000 that people have paid, all this kind of stuff. Later on, I decided to give up my business and to just teach nonviolent communication in Vermont. And my best friend from Seattle calls me up and says, the center's looking for an IT guy. And if my mission is to share nonviolent communication in the world, that would be a way I could use already existing skills. And that was just absolutely amazing for 10 years, supporting people all around the world. Unfortunately, I kind of overdid it. Overdid it so much that my partner of 10 years asked me not to live with her anymore. For good reason. I would get up long before she did, and I would go to work, and I would come home around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I had a little portable computer I would set up on the table where we're playing cards so I could talk to people in Korea and Australia. So I really wasn't available. So I left Vermont and came down to Albuquerque where the headquarters were. And now I didn't have to quit work at 9 o'clock. I could work until 11:30, until I woke up one morning and I knew 2 things. First thing I knew was the sheets I were laying on were marvelously comfortable. Second thing I noticed was I didn't know where I was. And then I noticed I didn't know who I was. I had accomplished the 12th stage of the 12 stages of burnout syndrome. It was a complete reset. It was also the most wonderful thing that happened to me because I experienced critical movements in my life that created somebody who was not a miracle magnet. The first one, I want to sit on my mother's lap. I'm a toddler. And I go up to sit in her lap as usual, and she brushes me away. I'm nursing your baby brother. And I decide, oh, I've been replaced. I don't belong in the family anymore, blah, 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 blah. And, I'm looking at, they told me is looking at this image of this whole thing that took place, in the room that I was looking at. And I realized what an opportunity it was to pay attention to these critical moments in my life because I couldn't think about anything else and make new choices. So I stopped being a people pleaser. And I just dived deeper and deeper into my trainings, into the work that I do. And then I couldn't work anymore, so I retired and started teaching full time, because I did all the teaching that I did on the weekends.
Right, right. Wow, that's amazing, Pan. But you're exactly where you're meant to be right now, would you say?
I believe that everything that happens to us is exactly what our soul needs in order to evolve. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love
And that's one of the
that.
things I really loved about your system too,
Yeah.
which was to understand that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
Yeah,
And that's,
one of the key teachings. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
God, yes. When you realize that, then you almost look forward for bad things to happen, because you know there's
It's
something wonderful
true.
is going to come out
When
of it.
shit hits the fan, and believe me, like it always does,
Oh yeah.
I look forward to the next level, like I'm constantly up leveling through my shit shows. And in fact, I'm writing a book this year called Shit Show in Tuscany, which is based on like my first international retreat that went south. And this is what we talked about when we had our session last week. But there's a book that's coming out of it on leadership. I learned how to be a good leader by being a really shitty leader in Tuscany. So, we up level and we get better and better, because if we choose to be on a spiritual path, on a path of inner development, we call it inner work, inner journey, whatever you want to call it, right? Basically, it's living consciously. It's not living reactively. It's about, consciously moving forward in your life and knowing that you're the co-creator, with your higher power.
Yeah.
And you are a divine, powerful being. And if you choose to see life from that perspective versus I'm a victim and things happen to me, your life completely transforms.
That's the law of attraction.
Yeah.
I'm miserable. Okay, here's some more miserable stuff to have.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why you wanted it, but my job is to give you what you want.
Yeah.
And what you want is really what you focus on, and what you.
And your vibration, what you focus on gives you a vibration that people pick up on. And they either treat you like shit or they treat you great, because it's what you believe about yourself. And that self-love, that self-compassion, which you really emphasize with your program, with your work, is about living in a high vibration, higher self, the self that has self-love and self-compassion, so that we can give it to the rest of the world, right? So, oh my God. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And also you give beautiful workshops, do beautiful workshops on NVC, which you did for my team. So my team and I have had exposure to, NVC, and it's changed our lives. We're so much better communicators now that we have these powerful tools in our toolbox. So grateful for you, Pan. So I just want to share, with anybody listening, watching, reach out to you. Can they just message you on Instagram, Pan? If is it?
Yeah. I think I just I'm brand new to Instagram. I post a few memes up there.
Well, they can DM you. They can DM you on Instagram, right? They can send you a private message. Yeah. And you offer complimentary calls to see if it's a good fit.
I do.
If people want to learn NVC, okay, awesome. And if people want to let go of a traumatic story, they can reach out to you as well, right? To have a quick shift on their story. Yeah. I call mine a quick shift consult. I don't know what you want to call yours. It's so new, you might not even have a name for it. Do you have a name for it, Pan, for that session we did last week?
I actually haven't really settled on a name. I like the one you gave me. I'm eagle with that, but I'm still kind of working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? If people want to try it out, I think you might give them a special, discount, because you're still at the beta level of it. Yeah. And, you might want to consider that, Pan, because this is, I think mine was the second. So if somebody else is interested here in shifting their story, perhaps you can give them, I might be speaking at a turn, but you can give them a special discount, because maybe they can help you to name it as well. Who knows?
Right, exactly. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm noticing
Go
the
ahead.
time. And
Yes, yes,
I have to rush off to a
exactly.
doctor's appointment. But I'm so grateful to have a chance to talk to you here on this platform. And I'm so dedicated to sharing this with as many people as I possibly can, because I know it works. And not just for me, but for hundreds and hundreds of people that I have worked with. And that's my fuel, the gratitude I get from people after they've worked with me. That's what feeds me.
That's so beautiful. Well, it's your purpose, Pan. You're definitely here to share NVC with the world and to help people to, you know, restructure their stories, rethink their stories so that they don't have to have so much trauma. I really believe that's your purpose, and to help people love their life and be miracle magnets, right? You're part of the miracle magnet movement.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for you, Pan. You're just such a blessing in our lives, on my beautiful team, our beautiful team. So thank you for being here today, Pan. And I'm just going to, David Marshy, message me if you want to be interviewed. So please do that. Thank you so much for inquiring about that. And so Pan, I like to finish off my shows with my little tagline that I like to sing. So if you know it, sing along. And if you don't, just, you know, like smile, okay?
I'm not sure you want to hear me sing, but let's go for it.
All right. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Get out of your own effing way. Your miracle life awaits. Yeah.
It's so true. It's really true. Okay.
So much fun with you today, Pan. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone that's jumped on live and whoever's watching on replay. And please share anything that you wish to ask Pan in the comments below, or message him privately. And I'm excited to see you next week. I'm going to bring on another special guest next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. IG Live with Elvira and Friends, shining a light on the light workers so they get to illuminate the world.
Awesome.
So,
I'm in good company, that's for sure.
Sorry, say that again, Pan.
Lots of
that
love
again.
for you. What?
I missed that last thing you said.
I said,
sorry.
oh, you're doing AJ? I'm in good company.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. All right. Take care. We'll chat with you soon. Bye.
Right, bye. Lots of love to you.
Bye.